everybody to the Law of Attraction 2.0, Spiritual Straight Talk with G.P. Walsh and myself, Karen Scopola. And today we're going to be discussing the truth about the 5 kinds of money and the mind-body-money connection with our guest, Margaret Lynch.
Margaret, yay!
Yay! Yes.
So, for many of us, wealth manifestation is a really important topic. I know I think about it a lot. We're all working harder and longer hours these days. And it seems like we're all having to work so much harder to stay afloat during today's economic climate. And G, I was hoping maybe you could shed some light for us on where the origins of money come from and wealth and why it eludes so many of us.
Well, money and wealth are not the same. Most people think it is. Money has become synonymous with survival. It's really interesting to note that when the United States was founded 200 and some odd years ago, I think it's like 98% of the population of the entire country were farmers.
That's incredible.
I know. And as the Industrial Revolution picked up, more and more people were moving to cities. But even up to World War II, it was like 90 to 92% of the entire industrial world was still farmers, right? Those numbers are reversed now. It's only like 2 to 5% of the population of this entire industrialized world lives on a farm. Now, when you're growing your own food, you have your own livestock, and most of the things you use, you make yourself. You don't really have much need for money. So not having money just meant no luxury. It didn't mean you didn't eat. So in less than 60 years since World War II, money has gone from being a luxury for those few things you couldn't make or grow yourself to being the source of our very survival. So its presence or absence really triggers our nervous system. Its absence triggers our survival mechanism, the same way it would if the crops dried up or the locust came. But there's so much more to us than just the desire to survive. We all have this innate desire to grow, to expand, to build, to enjoy. Now, from the perspective of survival, wealth simply means having everything you need, and then more so in case something bad happens, I'm okay, I'm good. Right? But that's not wealth, that's hoarding.
Yeah.
We're not squirrels putting away nuts for the winter. Wealth is actually a creative relationship with money. It's where you step out of the survival mode and step into the role of mastery, and you start using money for purposes, for your higher purpose. The wealth state of mind, you begin to use money to develop, to express. You invest. You invest in yourself. You use it. You invest in other things, people, ideas, stuff you believe in with the intention of growing them. It's a very different state of mind from just simply contracting, holding on, and grasping and trying to increasing your income. Progress in an awakened life is always moving from self-protection to self-expression. It's going from survival to freedom. And that's why Margaret's message is so valuable. I fell in love with the title of her book, Tapping into Wealth. Notice it's not tapping into better survival, right? It's tapping into wealth. It's a law of attraction 2.0 axiom that wealth lives in us as an innate capacity. But it's only activated when we grow in character to the point where it's natural to us, where we're at home there. When we begin to liberate who we are, liberate all our creative juices, our passions, our energy, our enthusiasm, our vision of what life can be, we shift the entire energy of our motivation and focus, and then money begins to serve us. We don't pursue it to survive. We actually use it to grow. And that's when money gets transformed into wealth.
Tonight, we're thrilled to have with us Margaret Lynch, transformational speaker, coach, and author of Tapping into Wealth.
Margaret!
Yay!
Having me on my favorite little topic.
Well, we're so excited to have you talk about your favorite topic.
Yeah.
But before we get started, I wanted to share with our listeners some background information about you, Margaret. So you're just going to have to hang with me while I give you lots of kudos. So the Wall Street Journal calls Margaret the Tapping for Wealth Authority. I love that. She has X-ray vision for seeing the fears and limiting beliefs that keep success-minded people limited in their money and personal power. She is an accomplished success coach, author, and top EFT tapping expert. After 18 years of engineering management and winning top sales awards at Fortune 500 companies, Margaret left corporate America. She decided she was going to leave and live her passion. And in less than 4 short years, she created $1 million business using the exact techniques that she teaches. Her new book, Tapping into Wealth, will be published October 10th. So perfect timing, Margaret, being on the show. So again, welcome, Margaret. I'm so excited to have you here. I wondered if you could start us off by maybe explaining to us what the 5 kinds of money are.
You know, as I started to create my business and leaving corporate America, where the company sets your income, right? The company sets your value. And now I went out on my own, like many people do, and I want to live my passion. I really started to see, both in the clients that I had and in myself, that there was something very, very specific about money, and not just the word abundance, which, you know, law of attraction was big back then, right? We're talking like, 5 years ago. It was like, I want to, work on the law of attraction and manifesting. But when I talked about money, people really got triggered and really irritated and wanted to get out of my office. Now, the same thing, right, is unlike other kinds of coaches, because I use tapping or emotional freedom technique, which is a clearing technique to clear out blocks, right? I'm looking for the stuff that triggers people and makes them get like, oh, really uncomfortable. Like, why are you asking me that? Now I want to throw up. That's like, yeah, I've hit on something. And in myself, I was literally, using the coaching on myself as a guinea pig and requiring all these different things of myself. Like, for instance, setting a huge goal in my income and writing it down on a piece of paper. And then I wanted to throw up and die, right? And so I was like, wow, this has a totally different energy. So over time, in working through thousands of people and literally on myself, sometimes I say mostly on myself. Well, maybe it was clients, but probably mostly on myself. Really seeing, because I'm an experimenter, I'm an engineer at heart, and I like to find things that you can apply them and they work really quickly. So I really started to see that there's different energies around money. So I was like, whoa, I have to take my law of attraction workshop and I have to add a whole section on creating goals. And so then I go and teach the next workshop, and we're trying to get people's limiting beliefs about doubling their business income, blasted through the ceiling. And they're just stuck. This little group of people stuck. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And finally, someone brave enough raised their hand and said, I have $40,000 of credit card debt. And I was like, oh, and how does that, what do you feel? Why is that coming up now? Well, when I think about doubling my income, I think, well, I'm such a loser. I can't manage money at all. Look at my debt. And this person was like racked with shame and fear. And I thought, I think I need to add a whole nother section to my law of attraction work, because debt had a totally different energy. So 5 kinds of money that I ended up identifying, go from like yucky to scary. So the first one is income, and I'll run through them fast. And then if you want, I can talk to you about the energy of each of the 5 and what it means, so people can kind of self-diagnose. Would that be great?
That would be great.
Okay. So the first one is income. And so there's a different energy when you talk about your income, or if I asked you to write your current income down on a piece of paper, people start to go, oh, now I know what you mean by there's an energy about it. So there's a different energy of income versus when we just say the words money or wealth or abundance. The second kind of money is called income goals. It's actually setting a goal for where you want your income to be. The third is debt. The fourth one is savings, your actual savings account, which is sort of like your basic, like, do you have a year's living expenses living in the bank? And then beyond that, sort of the metaphor for wealth, overall wealth and security. And the fifth one is where it gets really creepy. It's called toxic money. And that's a creepy one. If, it doesn't affect everybody, but if you have toxic money, you're going to want to hear what that one is, because it will get rid of all of your income and all of your savings and create debt. Like literally, it can do that within months if you get toxic money. Okay, so those are the 5 kinds of money. But before I jump into telling you more about them, I wanted to share there's kind of the 3 elements that each one also has. Does that make sense? So you got 5 kinds of money, and every one of them has 3 elements at play. Because when you add all of this together, it creates what I call an inner glass ceiling in your money and in your wealth, right? Because we think about, we all have heard that expression, glass ceiling. You're trying and trying, you can't get beyond it. Well, this creates an inner glass ceiling, and it creates it in 2 broad categories. One is like what Greg was already referring to as survival. And so one of it is just limiting generational wealth programming, and the other side of it is limiting where you will go to create more money. So there's like 2 sides of how the inner glass ceiling limits you. One is limiting program, the other is limiting your energy and how you use it to create more money. Okay, so here's the 3 things that are in each of the 5. And this is where I love taking people who are like, those people who are on the outside of the personal development movement. They don't know anything about personal development.
The civilians.
Yes, the civilians. And I love to just totally get them, because I can prove that there's a mind-body connection in the money very, very quickly. And it's like I get them within minutes, and they're like, oh, yeah, you're totally right. So in every piece of the 5 kinds of money, there's a mind-body connection. And so there are programmed beliefs, emotions literally running through your nervous system, and 3, traumas. That's right, I said it. Traumas. That actually you can have a trauma, what I call a financial trauma, that is energetically mixed into your money. Okay, so programmed beliefs, emotions that race through the nervous system before you have a time to even think about it, and 3rd, trauma. And so I'll walk through the 5 kinds. I don't want to fire hose you guys. And I get excited, and then I talk faster, and it's terrifying. Okay, so I'm going to start with savings, which is, I know it's not the order I just gave the 5 in. Okay, and so what holds our savings account either down, or as many people call it, the vacuum where my savings is supposed to be? So what holds your savings, where it is or non-existent? And so the savings account has a very specific energy. The program beliefs sound like this: I will never feel safe or taken care of. The emotions that run through people's nervous system most often when I say tune into or think about your savings or your lack of savings are sadness and a sense of loss, disappointment, and then worry, like what happens if. Okay, so see how it gets kind of real really fast?
Exactly, yeah.
The traumas that people have connected to their savings account or their lack of savings will always be ones of great loss, a loss in the past that still feels unresolved for you, that maybe still has grief attached to it. Okay, and so savings, I mean, I didn't make this up. This is what I learned from thousands of people working with the energy of savings. There's always this sense of sadness, loss, and never being taken care of. And so it's really interesting that many people, when I have them work with, tune into their savings, what's the feeling, what's the emotion, they have these past traumas around a parent dying or someone dying or never feeling taken care of or having some great loss or tragedy or even an injury to their body or an illness that shook their feeling of safety in this world. And until you deal with the program beliefs, the emotions and the traumas that are connected, it becomes very hard to shift your savings. Now, on the plus side, when people do that, I have seen people create absolute miracles in their savings account. Because think of it this way, would you, if your savings had all of this energy connected to it, and maybe even a trauma that still feels like you're grieving it, how much time and energy would you focus on setting goals in your savings account and pushing money that way? Probably not a lot, right? So to move on to the next one, debt, okay? Debt, what holds debt energetically in place? This is often where I'll first talk about the trauma. Because often when people write down their debt on a piece of paper and they look at it, they immediately think of a past event, I call it a financial trauma, that involves either a betrayal or a battle or something that you've never forgiven yourself for or you still blame yourself for. So sometimes it's some kind of a betrayal or a business gone bad, or something. Sometimes it's something where you're just like, I was such an idiot and I totally should have known better. And that energy in the present of still blaming yourself for it is basically the vibe to the universe of, I deserve what I'm getting in my debt. It's like energetically, this is what I deserve. So the programmed beliefs sound like this. See, this debt proves that I have failed. I am failing. Something about me is not good enough. And the emotion is always shame. Right? It's dark mind body stuff. And so when I started to, when I created, I mentioned in my little story there, I created a space in my programs to deal with debt. Whoa, did stuff happen. I mean, I have been in this huge event called the Tapping World Summit that happens every year. And every year they want me to talk about debt and do the tapping for debt because it's so intense. They literally just emailed me, oh my God, Margaret, we want you to do debt again. I'm like, this will be my third time on that topic. They're like, it's so intense. It's so awesome. And, I get into the interview, imagine, hearing 45 minutes just about debt. And it just gets really intense, really fast. But that's also the opportunity and the upside, because when you clear something that involves shame, holy Lord, does your energy and vibe change. And I have watched people create miracles in getting rid of their debt so quickly when they are no longer making sure that they're being punished by it or keeping a battle with someone else.
Let me interrupt you for just a second, because I want to drive this point home, because this is such a Law of Attraction 2.0 moment, and a lot of the people on this call will be preaching to the choir, but I'd like to invite everybody who's listening right now to actually feel something about that. Just consider your own savings and your own debt. And the whole point of this is to feel it. We don't want this to be an intellectual exercise. There is a direct correlation between your physical experience, the things that are happening in your world, and the inner world in which you have a relationship with these things. And so the key to opening that up is to being willing to feel it. Now, this can mean entering into some dark space. And I encourage you all to be courageous about it, because the dark space is only dark because nobody's turned a light on in there. Once you turn the light on, it's actually, you see that it's actually not all that scary, but it is awfully dirty. And there's a lot of stuff that needs to be cleaned up. So just do it right now. Just listen to what she said. Consider that. Do you have that association with debt and shame? Shame is heavy on debt. People feel so bad about it. They're embarrassed about credit card debt and compulsive behaviors that kind of cause this insistence that you keep yourself down. It's okay to feel this stuff. As a matter of fact, it's critical, because that's how you begin to release it. When you give yourself permission to actually feel anything and give it the space to come out, there's an immediate shift that takes place in the nervous system, and it actually begins to seek the light. It stops hiding. and begins to own itself. So I really want you to feel what Margaret is saying. Make a shift tonight. Make a correlation between anything she said and any feeling. And if you get a feeling and it's striking you, you can forget everything else we're saying and just go to that feeling, because that's your truth. That's where we're trying to get you to. That's where the discovery is going to take place. So go ahead, Margaret.
Yeah, and I would add to that we avoid these feelings because what we really think is that reality happens and we react to it. And I want to suggest that the programming and the running through your nervous system part was there first, and you have manifested your money, whether it's in debt or lack of savings, to reflect that resident programmed belief, nervous system programming with shame, with fear, and the reaction of which are both, a reaction from the trauma and from what we learned from our generational wealth programming. So, to me, that's such a beautiful upside. That means if you can shift your inner world around wealth, then the outer manifestation will change. I mean, even Susie Orman, who is, on the opposite end of what we do, says your inner worth is connected to your net worth. I mean, dear Lord, I'm like, she says stuff like that, and I'm like, oh my God, I love you.
Well, it's, in the course I teach, Law of Attraction 2.0, that's one of the, I think it's principle number 5, is that it's actually the law of reflection. I like that term better than the law of attraction, because your experience is a mirror of what's going on inside. So it's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to try to manipulate. It's nothing to throw rocks at. It's a beautiful indication that there's some place inside of you that's really calling out to be accepted and loved and welcomed back into the light. And these are things, nervous system isn't stupid. It doesn't make this stuff up. It just didn't say, well, I'm going to be really dumb now. I mean, it did this because it had a damn good reason to do it. Some experiences happened in your life that caused it to do that in order to protect you. And it's still doing it. It just doesn't know the war's over. It doesn't know that it's safe to come out now. And that's our job, to show it that it is. And then all of that energy gets released. It's just, and it can happen incredibly fast.
Well, and I've heard something said about the fact that you're doing good work, or you're moving towards where you need to be working when it feels really, really uncomfortable, right? So
yes.
when you're feeling really nervous and anxious about the work you're doing, that means you're doing the work. You're in the right place. Because if it was comfortable, that means you're doing the old stuff. You're doing the old behaviors.
That's pretty much the truth.
Yeah, I love when my clients will say, "Thanks, Margaret," and I always say, "I'm sorry, and you're welcome." Thanks, Margaret. Yeah, it is. It's like, this is the stuff that this is why I've learned to be so specific about the 5 kinds of money, because you don't see it unless you so specifically look there. Yes. And I really challenged myself this. I mean, I have an engineering brain, for God's sakes. I was like, I know law of attraction, but I mean, how can tapping change the dollars and cents number in my bank account? I mean, really, can that actually be connected to that? And dang it, it is. It's freaky.
Well, I want to keep moving. So I want to keep moving towards, okay, we got 3 more to cover. We've done savings and debt. I want to keep going because I know our listeners want to hear what they are.
Yeah, okay, great. So the next one is income. Okay, so the glass ceiling in your income is held in place by nervous system programming. So this is emotion that literally is wired to run through your nervous system, through your first chakra nervous system, that you learned since childhood from your tribe, as we say, from your family. And it usually involves, particularly if you were middle class or your parents were middle class or working class, there's going to be anxiety, fear, disappointment, frustration around money. And the programmed beliefs are around things like there's never enough, and the belief in it's not so much about your belief. It's your belief in your value, but it's really like people like us make this much money, and people like us have to work this hard for our money. And so it's really this tribal programming on the nature of survival. Can I earn enough to survive? And can I go beyond that? And so it's always this programming around, there's never enough, people live hand to mouth, and who we are, quote unquote, in our family, and how hard we have to work for our money. Now, I also say all the time that we think that money, and I thought this when I left corporate America, that if I was smart and really good at what I did and heart-centered, that money would show up. And I think, we all know enough people out there who are smart and talented and literally not earning a living. And so money doesn't, having talent and brilliance and experience does not equal having money. But money responds, to two things, really. It responds to your inner value and your inner power, because money is a piece of your power, right? So both of the pieces are there, and for me, your income is always going to reflect your inner value, but your inner value is kind of set by your tribal beliefs of people like us and the value of who we, people like us are. Even when you look at so many people in my generation who parents were working class, and then the kids go to college and have a huge amount of earning power and literally live hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck, and have the same anxiety around money and a fear of money running out that their parents had. That's called generational wealth programming. Does that make sense?
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense to me. I think that a lot of people feel that way, right? Like we've done better than our parents because we had the opportunity to go to college, be educated, move past that. So why aren't we doing more? Why aren't we able to make more?
Yeah. And so as we come into the next one, which is income goals,
mm-hmm.
and you think about, okay, so why don't we have goals, whether it's for our income or for our savings account? Your income goals are limited, with this glass ceiling in two ways. One, avoiding them altogether because of everything we've talked about. They trigger these program beliefs and these really negative emotions. And we also don't typically have learned money management focus. And here's the program belief. It's impossible for me or people like us to earn that much. It's impossible to ever go beyond paycheck to paycheck. And when I push people to set a really big income goal, because of the value that says this is how hard I have to work for my money, the first thing they say is it's impossible. And the second thing they say is it would probably be really hard. So if income goals, I remember I was so angry at Jack Canfield for weeks. Jack Canfield doesn't know me, and I didn't know him, but I saw him in the movie, and I did what he said, which was write down an income goal. I put it on my ceiling, $1 million. I was like, you know what? Screw you, Jack Canfield. I wrote down an income goal, and I wanted to kill myself, because it showed me every one of my programmed beliefs. And so the emotions that are connected to income and, income goals or savings goal are the emotions that are wired with fear of failure and sadness about what is not possible for you and people like us and, in my tribe, in my family.
Something I want to point out about that, it's really important. Because when you talk about these kind of these beliefs and programs, they're felt more than they're thought. Matter of fact, you may never think it at all. Those thoughts, you may have all the right thoughts and do your visualization and your vision board, and you're really, really disciplined about that. These are felt. Feel how you react to something like that when you hear it. If something strikes you inside, it's those feelings that are an indication of these programs, because most of these programs got put into place before we could even speak, let alone think.
Yeah. And they're not like logical either. So it's like, why would I have that programming? I want to believe it's easy, but it's at the most basic level, your level of nervous system and programming.
Not only that, but you can have two completely contradictory ones at the same time.
Yeah, which I was just about to talk about and segue into that. But yeah, the way that I would get people into what you said of feeling it, and back, 3-4 years ago, law of attraction people would really get upset with me because I would say, I'm going to make you say something really negative. And they'd be like, oh, I can't say only affirmations. I have to keep the evil off of me. If I say it, it's going to appear. And I'd say, okay, it's all right. Just, I want you to say, look at this big income goal and say out loud, it's impossible. And then they would just bottom out with emotion and melt onto the floor and get into the fetal position. And I'd say, okay, what's that emotion? And it's like a failure and sadness. And this is why I was so mad at Jack Canfield, because when I looked at my income goals, I felt I was alone in my home. I hadn't left the house or done anything, yet I felt an overwhelming feeling of failure. And I was like, what the heck? I haven't even done anything. All I did was write down a number on a piece of paper. And
but
yes,
that's incredible that we can pull up that much emotion associated with it. And I know I would feel the same way. I mean, I think the reason why I've avoided creating income goals is because, I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to reach that. I'm not able to do that. Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners feel that way too.
And we say, first of all, there's a very smart part of your mind called the analytical part of your mind that is a problem-solving execution part of your mind. And it's never seen you do it before, and you don't actually know how to get there today. And so to sign up for a goal that feels 100% impossible would be very stupid, because you would be setting yourself up for failure. So we completely avoid it. Like 80% of small business owners and solopreneurs, entrepreneurs never set an income goal, which every single book on success tells you the first thing is set a goal. You know what I mean? And I found out why very quickly.
Well, because people are afraid of, they're actually afraid of that thing. We've never been taught to actually honor what you're feeling and look to it for information. We've been taught to run away from it, hold the happy thought, keep the smiley face on. That was one of the big things that were lacking in the way the law of attraction was taught, which is why I created Law of Attraction 2.0, because it isn't enough. We have to reestablish this really intimate relationships with ourselves, honor all these feelings. Then they can reveal their truth to us, which is where freedom really lies. Hey everybody, this is G. What does it mean to truly forgive and let go? Follow my co-host, author Karen Scarpula, on her journey to forgiveness in her new book, Walking Toward the Light. Karen's ex-husband had just been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she makes the bold, and some might say crazy decision to move herself and her children back in with him, so her children could reconnect with their father and make new memories that will hopefully last a lifetime and maybe even heal old wounds. Anyone that has ever had to grapple with forgiveness will find enormous guidance and encouragement in Karen's journey. Walking Toward the Light, A Journey in Forgiveness and Death, is now available at Amazon.com.
And I actually forgot one little piece of income goals, because Greg mentioned it. We have these opposite things. So the other thing that can happen in income goals is, instead of limiting ourselves all the time, we will remember making a vow to surpass our parents and never live that way. And what that does is create the boom and bust cycle in your income, where you will battle against the limits that anyone set for you, and then you'll surpass what anyone's ever earned. But then you will find a way to sabotage it and get rid of it all and cycle right back and say, oh my God, I feel exactly like my parents. even though I vowed never to. So the income goals, there's two parts to it. You can either just limit yourself with the it's impossible, or you totally go into this like vow to do better, and then you do the boom and bust cycle because it's all sort of this battle. Does that make sense? For some people right now, they're like, oh Lord, that's me. Okay.
Wow.
And that is something that can go away. Okay, so here's toxic.
Hold on a sec before we move forward.
Yes.
I have a question actually from a caller. We have someone calling in. All right. Donald, can you hear us?
Yep, it's really more of a comment. I'm so glad that you had mentioned. I watched The Secret years ago, and I went on their site, and I printed out the little write a check to yourself for $1 million. And it was the most depressive thing to look at for the longest time, And it wasn't till I moved past that I mean, I just wanted to just give you a little shout out for saying that. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Donald.
Yeah, I'd be yelling at the movie. Yeah, shut up, Jack Canfield.
You're crazy.
Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so toxic money. This is only affects certain people, but if it is in play, it can literally override everything. I've seen people who are high earners and have a very wealthy life, and when toxic money appeared, within months had gotten rid of everything and never were able to earn again. Okay, so here's what toxic money is. Toxic money is created by a situation where you're either owed or are receiving money that comes with a very high price. Either battle or anger, where someone has owed you money and they're not paying it to you, or they're giving you money, but they hate that they're giving it to you and it comes with a battle. Or receiving that money requires you to somehow stay stuck where you don't want to be, not speak your truth, be less powerful, or even play the victim in order to receive it. So I had to create another category. I used to only have all kinds of money people until I worked with several people who were owed inheritance that they were screwed out of, or had child support or alimony coming that came with a huge battle, or were somehow cut out of their, out of a situation where they were supposed to have money and it didn't come, or they were staying with someone who was paying for their lifestyle and they didn't want to be there. They had to be disempowered, or they were injured and had to prove over and over and over to the other party how wounded and victimized they were in order to show that they needed that money. And it was money that they needed, but from that moment on, could never, literally got rid of all of their money in every situation, could never earn again. It's just incredibly debilitating if you've got toxic money. And so this is something that I mention in the book because unraveling it is just an incredibly powerful exercise. It brings you back into your power. And people do reach a decision point. They do reach a decision point that is very difficult, which is, walking away from money that they're receiving. Literally, sometimes I've worked with people in their 60s and it's still coming from their parents. Okay, walking away from a situation that is toxic like that, whether it's literally money from a parent or from a partner or from a spouse or some kind of creepy relationship, or letting go of the battle that they're in around money that they're owed or have to receive, with battle. Isn't that interesting and
That's
scary?
Incredible and very scary, and something that you never think about, right? Where your money comes from and the energy that's attached to it.
There's nothing more debilitating to somebody's self-esteem is to face the fact that you have let yourself become dependent on somebody else for your well-being. And it happens emotionally. I mean, that kind of money is vampire-ish. I mean, and the reality is that you've kind of sold yourself out right? You've compromised your integrity. You've compromised who you are for this immediate benefit of getting the money to take care of yourself. And there's the toxicity in it. It really strikes right at the heart of your sense of self-esteem, your sense of value, the sense of having something to offer, and your sense of being free. And so it is a very difficult thing to face because it's not pretty. But when you do face it, and when you do see it, and you do find the strength, and you make that shift, the liberation is just phenomenal. It's blissful.
It is, and I think it's so hard for people to see because they would say, "But I'm right. This is so wrong. It's unfair. Like I can't give up this fight." And for some situations, it's like, no, if I give up this fight, I'm letting them off the hook, and it's so unfair. But the inability to let go of that means all of their energy that they could be out creating money with is in battle 24 hours a day, and they don't they don't actually see themselves as a victim or being disempowered. They see themselves as fighting a battle.
Right.
And it's really interesting, and I've had people come to a decision point where they're like, no, I'm not letting this go. They screwed me out of my inheritance, and I'm never letting it go. And they just can't earn.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we actually have a question. I'd like to let the caller ask. Alessandra, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
You have a question?
Yes, on the last comment about receiving money, I did go through a very bloody 2-year court battle. Where all my money was gone, and to get my children back. And will that be considered if I'm still getting child support? And if all my money was gone to get my girls back? And it seems that there's something missing here because it's all interconnected. I mean, for me to say, let the child support go, but that is the only thing that I have to get on my feet. That would be like a self-defeating, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, and that money is there to support your children, right?
Yeah.
So for me, this is more of what I would call a financial trauma. The trauma around you having to be in battle, and the dark side of it can be that if you were to have more money going forward, so you want to clear the trauma that happened around how much battle and negativity you had to be in to get this money, okay? And so that when you're receiving those checks, you feel nothing but positive energy. The going forward side that I also want you to look at, secondly, is if you were suddenly earning 10 times what you're earning now, would that let somebody off the hook that wouldn't have to pay or could make the case, you don't need this money? And if so, you will make sure you don't earn so that this argument that you've got to give money to support your kids is always valid. Okay, so you deal with the past, but also look, check this situation in the current, the present, or the future, because people will often say, wow, yeah, if I was making a lot of money, that would give him the out. And he would start to say, you don't need this money. I told everybody you don't need this money and I don't want to give it to you. And they're like, I can't let that happen. So it's really about checking in. How does it feel for you? How does it feel, when you clear the past so that you have no charge around it, that you're not carrying this trauma in the money situation? Because it sounds to me like it probably wasn't fun for you to be in that horrifying battle.
No.
Right? And so clearing that and then really looking at, if I were to start earning, 2 or 3 times more, is there a downside for me in that? And what I'll say to people is I'll say, picture yourself, close your eyes, picture yourself earning that much money, and now this person who, your husband or your ex or whoever walks up and sees you. And then what's your fear? What's he going to do? What's he going to say? What's going to happen? And sometimes you can see it there, and they'll say, oh, God, no, I can't look wealthy because then I don't have a case anymore or something like that. Okay, so check it on both sides.
I think for me, it's more of the anxiety at being pushed to perform or to earn the money so he doesn't have to pay me. And I feel that uncomfort constantly. And I'm like, I'm working, I'm trying, I'm doing the best I can. And it's always that push, like, well, if you earn more money, then I didn't have to pay as much. Well, if you did that, I didn't have to do that. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, and so, there's still this back and forth. You guys are not together anymore, right?
No.
So, but you see how much energy still goes back and forth to what his opinion is and what you need to be doing? So energetically, there's a tremendous amount of energy going into that, as opposed to a true energetic separation where it kind of doesn't matter what his opinion is. I mean, are you in the U.S.? Child support is set by the court, not by his opinion of what you're making.
Yes, I'm in California.
Yeah, so it's really his opinion and of what you're doing. So, the fact that it's still sort of energetically, there's a lot of connection there. I want to see you shift so that he could say anything he wants to you about what you're doing, and you are impervious to that. You are just living your life and creating your life your way with faith and confidence about what's manifesting for you, regardless of what comes out of his mouth. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Great. Thank you, Margaret. That was great. I know, I'm sure a lot of people are in that same situation, especially when you're talking about child support.
Yeah, it does. It comes up, and it's like, that's not a situation where you can say, I'm going to walk away from that money, because the money is for the well-being of the children, and children deserve that money, that support from both the parents. So it's really about clearing your own energy, really clearing the relationship. Like some people get divorced and they're still not really energetically divorced for years. There's this huge connection going on, and they're triggering each other, and you're always in battle with that person, so that the money can come in and feel like a gift that's there for your children, which is what it is.
That's a great way to look at it. So we did start a little late. Are you good on time? Can we keep going for another 5 or 10 minutes? I
am good.
Okay, great. So is there anything else that you wanted to add before we wrap up talking about the 5 kinds of money? Is there anything else that you feel it's important for us to know?
I think, some of the things that Greg and I have both said, which is, have hope that when you want to shift your money, something, one of the kinds of abundance called money, because it's a very specific kind of abundance, there's many kinds of abundance. When you want to make a specific shift in that kind of abundance in your money, look very specifically for the blocks that you have in these pieces of your money. And, with a mind-body tool like tapping, and, this is why I wrote the book, Tapping into Wealth, because I wanted to expose people who don't know anything about mind, body, and connection, but that could really make a shift just by getting very specific about clearing what's in their nervous system, what's in their program beliefs, and what traumas they have that are connected to money, so that they can, you can start manifesting at a whole new level. You can start creating at a whole new level. So, to me, it's kind of like, have faith. The upside is huge. Upside is huge, because you're already living at your set point. You're already living there, and so there's only up to go from here.
Well, and I love that you just brought up the book. So how deep does the book really go in helping people overcome their obstacles with their money and creating wealth? And for those of us who aren't familiar with EFT tapping, is it pretty user-friendly? Does it take us deep enough that by the time you're done reading the book, people will have been able to clear some of their roadblocks?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the book is an experiential multimedia program. And I do a lot of programs that are online and in video form. And so it's hard for me to just write a book, so I didn't. I made every chapter a transformational program, so that from the beginning of the chapter to the end, somebody emerges differently. And then I created a video for every single chapter. So you open the book, and at the end of every chapter, there's a quick read code and a URL for those of us who don't have smartphones. And right there, you get a video of me where now it's me on video walking you through another exercise, another piece of it, maybe walking, I show you in video form how to do the tapping. But that's how I really designed it. It's 17 chapters of transformation, 17 videos for all 17 chapters. And it goes from clearing your programming and emotions, and then it goes to, now let's set a frickin' crazy goal. And now let's start clearing away what comes up against a huge goal, because to create more money and to create more wealth, now you've got to start creating. So what happens when now we set a big goal, and what do we need to clear all the negative pieces that come up when suddenly you start going after a big goal and you start stepping out and you start doing more? Different things emerge, right? So the book is kind of in two parts in that way. It's like clear the junk out. You heard a lot of that today. And then set an outrageous goal for your money and continue to clear. There's no way I would have built my business to over $1 million in less than 4 years if I hadn't just continued to clear everything that came up for me as I set forth to create $1 million business. It's the only way I would have done it. And I poured every single thing into this book that I, guinea pigged on myself and on other people so that you can get there easier and faster. So, it's absolutely cover to cover. It's a transformation. And if you like something that jumps off the page, there's all the videos as well.
That is so amazing. And I can't wait to get the book. I'm so excited.
My writer who helped me write it, she'd be like, do you have the next chapter? And I'd be like, oh, yeah. And she'd be like, because I really need to tap through it. My writer had a transformation from every chapter of the book. She'd be like, when are you done with that goal trauma chapter? Because I'm pretty sure I have a goal trauma, and it's hanging over me like a dark cloud, just like you said. And I'm like, here's the goal trauma chapter, honey. Go to it. So it truly, and she wasn't a tapping person, so it really makes a lot of change. And I'm so excited. You guys are the first to hear about it. It literally is just, available for pre-order, and it comes out October 10th with Penguin Books. And I'm just thrilled that you're letting me talk about it. Thank you.
Oh, that's so great. Well, obviously, congratulations are in order, and we're all very excited to read it. And I thank you so much for sharing with us today the 5 types of money that there are. And I know that we're going to need to have you back because we didn't even get a chance to cover all the things that we wanted to. So are you willing to come back, Margaret?
I suppose. Oh, that's really nice to me. Could you give
I
me
promise. I promise we'll say lots of great and fun, amazing things about you. And we'll be able to talk about the book because it'll be out by then.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, if anyone listening would like to order Margaret's book, I'm sure you're all going to want to do that. You can just go to loa20.com/our-guest. And we have a great bio up there about Margaret. And there's a quick link to pre-order her book and to also look at other products that Margaret has to offer. So again, be sure that you check out our guest page with Margaret. And Margaret, thank you so much for coming today. It was great having you on the show.
Thank you.
And G, do you have any last comments for us? Anything you'd like to add to our wealth manifestation topic today?
Well, of course.
How did I know you would?
We can get so wrapped up in fixing ourselves that we forget that there's something already innately beautiful, good, and pure about us. What we're really doing is we're uncovering that which is natural. Traumas are an unnatural event. It's because we've been put into an experience that was so terrifying at the time, and we couldn't run away from it, and we couldn't fight it, that it just got stuck. Because that's what your nervous system knows how to do. I really encourage people to rekindle that childlike play about what life could be like. Like Margaret, I've had so many experiences working with people who couldn't even dream anymore. The whole process had been so shut down, so traumatized, that they couldn't even allow themselves to dream about how life might be. But you know, our purpose as human beings, unlike any other critters in the universe as far as anybody knows so far, are the ones that actually get to hold a vision of what could be. That vision defines you. That vision is your gift. Now, when you start holding that vision, you're going to feel a lot of upheaval. Your nervous system, your vows, your wounds, all the stuff from the past is going to start speaking because it's trying to shut that vision down. Not because it wants to shut your vision down, but because for some reason it thinks that vision is a threat and it needs to protect you. All it's doing is protecting you. That's its job. It does it 24/7. And our job is to show it that it's safe for you to actually come out and play. We need to own our vision. We need to own it to the degree that we're willing to hold on to it even when it's really uncomfortable. And then we use these tools. We use the tools that Margaret offers. We use EFT. We use allowing. We use all these things available to us to let ourselves clear this energy out. But never, ever let go of your vision. You have one. And that is what's going to lead you way beyond what you can possibly imagine. It's what's going to inspire you and encourage you to go through those difficult times, to face the dark stuff, to face the toxic stuff, and come out on the other end liberated, free, and living life at a level that is almost unimaginable where you are right now.
I hope that all of you listening today were able to take away something with you today. I hope you'll all go onto our guest site and order Margaret's book. And I'd like to thank you all for listening to the Law of Attraction 2.0 Spiritual Straight Talk with G.P. Walsh and Karen Scarpula. If you want to join the conversation yourself, again, go to LOA20.com to learn how. And thank you so much, Margaret, for joining us. And thank you to all our listeners for joining us. In the upcoming weeks, we'll be talking with Beth Meisner, Christian author and speaker, Genpo, who is a Zen spirituality teacher. Many of you may have heard of.
He's actually he's my Roshi.
Yeah. So
Yes.
That ought to be a very interesting conversation.
Yes, it will.
Hopefully some insights into UG. And Rick Wilkes from Thriving Now, Carol Look from Attracting Abundance and also an EFT tapping expert, and Chris Jackson from Unity Day Church. So I'll be keeping you up to speed each week with new guests that we will be looking forward to having on the show. And we look forward to seeing you all again. And we hope you'll join us next week for more Straight Talk. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.